Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 24th, and right now we're looking at the GOES 18 satellite imagery. Check out the snow on some of the higher terrain. You can see Mount Rainier right here, the Cascades, Washington, Oregon. You see some of that dense fog into the Willamette Valley, kind of infiltrating into some of the valleys there of the Cascades. We did have some pretty good fog coverage here across the Puget Sound. It's been burning off quite rapidly here through the morning hours. You can see some sunshine to be had across eastern Washington, Oregon, but there is some dense fog still out there, especially across British Columbia here as well. And you can kind of see the clouds from that system associated with the Arctic air pushing down mainly east of the Rockies there across some of Idaho, Utah, and on and through Wyoming as well. Now, taking a look here, we have the moderate sneaker wave risk up and down the coastline, all the way from Vancouver Island to California here. So heads up for that. It's going to be some nice sunny days, and do not sleep on those sneaker waves coming in here, folks. You can kind of see we have this long wave period coming towards the coastline. It's going to move all the way down through California here, but right now it's coming on some of the shoreline of western BC. So heads up for that. Keep your children and your pets out of that surf zone, and do not turn your back on the ocean. Nice sunny skies out there with light winds, but there is the big sneaker wave threat here as we go on in through this weekend. And we got frost and freeze advisories and warnings out there for some areas, and it's pretty chilly for the inland areas as well. So, take those steps to protect your plants and livestock out there. Seattle, 5.64 inches of rain so far this month, and we averaged 6.3, and you think we might get there here, but we have a pretty dry period coming up here for probably about a week, and then we're going to turn that storm train back at the Pacific Northwest. We'll dive into those details as we go through the video here this morning. And if you guys want a nice affordable home weather station, click on that link down below. This thing is really nice. It's got all the data for you in the cloud. It stores it there. It's all solar powered and wireless. Lightning detection system on it is very fun as well. Now, taking a look at the European, so we do have this fog threat over the next few days, but it's not too widespread. And as we went through this morning, you can see the rapid burn off, and that looks like what did happen. Maybe it's overdoing just how fast it's spreading off across some of the Willamette Valley. Still have some dense fog out there. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, something similar, you can see it pop up and bubble around as we go through tomorrow morning. Maybe a little bit more persistent, hanging on a bit longer here, but then burning off as we go through the day. And then again on through Sunday morning, kind of a similar scenario there. And we're going to do that for a few days, probably on in through Monday morning also. And eventually we'll start to turn the storm track back at the Pacific Northwest. More on that here in a moment. Look at the 100-meter wind speeds. You can see generally light winds across the area. We're going to have some offshore component here to some of this flow over the next few days. Could get some gusty winds through the gorge, maybe the Stampede Gap here. Nothing too wild, but you can see this offshore flow goes all the way out across the coastal areas here at times. And then we wait for the next system here to start pushing towards the Pacific Northwest. Now, looking at the European, this is last night's run. You got Washington, Oregon here. There's Alaska, and you can kind of see this ridge of high pressure, this frontal system associated with that Arctic air sliding down the Rocky Mountains there. But we do remain dry here across Pacific Northwest, as you can see all the way through this weekend. You can see a storm system start to spin up and take aim at California here. Something I'm watching down here for the California channel over the next couple days. But then you can see as we go through probably next Thursday, we start to get a weak system here, and then they start to come a little bit more consistently as you see another one right on the heels of that for Friday night, then another one on the day Saturday, then another one on the day Sunday, with the storm train returning towards the Pacific Northwest. And some interesting systems here are showing up in some of the ensemble members as well. So it looks like a return to active weather here, but we still have a few days to go to get there. This is looking at Seattle, Tacoma. You can clearly see no precipitation expected as we go through the early portion of the week coming up. But once we start getting towards Thursday, we start to bring that precipitation chance back. And you can see some pretty nice totals here in the 24-hour precipitation periods here as we go on in through next weekend. Again, we'll be watching that very closely over here over the next few days. Here's Astoria. You can see some really huge totals kind of intermixed in there. And the control run had a few rainy periods in there as well. So again, the storm track looks to return towards the end of next week. And here we're looking at the dynamic tropopause potential temperature. So there's that trough associated with some of that Arctic air there. And then we bring the system towards the state of California here. And then the storm train starts to return here. We start to spill some cold air back out over the Gulf of Alaska here and picking up that pressure gradient and starting to launch some storms back into the Pacific Northwest, especially through next weekend here. So yeah, pattern change potentially coming up here as we go. And we'll be watching that closely. Look at Tillamook, some huge windstorms kind of intermixed in here in the fantasy windstorm hunt. Pretty windy here in a couple scenarios, even in the control run there also. So we'll be watching this as we go. It looks like some interesting systems may have their eyes on the Pacific Northwest. Seattle, again, kind of Typical thing as we've been going over it the last few days here, some interesting windstorms showing up in the ensemble members, but of course most of them do not have that right now. But the control run did have a 45 mile per hour gust here and then a 48 mile per hour gust here. So we'll be watching this. Looks like a stormy period might be headed our way. And this is looking at one of those fantasy windstorms here. You can see that deep of Gulf of Alaska low there, and then developing system here right off the Oregon Washington coast spins up right into the Pacific Northwest here, right into western Washington. The deepening as it would do so would bring a very strong blow to the region here. Purely fantasy right now, but you can see a very strong low pressure over the interior of British Columbia here, 978. Deepening as it would make landfall would be a pretty impressive system here, but it's just a fantasy windstorm hunt at this point. Now looking at the GFS, this is hot off the presses, the 12Z run total precipitation in inches. In fact, it's running right now, so let me make sure we have all the data, put it into motion, and you can see as we go through Saturday, Sunday, nothing, Monday, nothing, Tuesday, not a drop, Wednesday, not a drop, and then we get to Thursday, and you can see this next week system approach here, kind of breaking down the ridge a little bit here, and then we start to turn that storm track back at the Pacific Northwest, and you can see the precipitation total start to increase here as we go through the next 1 to 2 week period upcoming here. So it's purely fantasy right now, but it does look like we're going to get active again. But as far as any one given system here, lots of uncertainty. This is the 10-day precipitation anomaly. So this is right up until about the storm train returns to the Pacific Northwest, and look at the big deficit we're going to be running here over the next 10 days or so for much of the coastal areas here, even the Cascades as well. So yeah, dry period coming up here, folks, but we do have some storms on the horizon. This is looking at Stampede Pass here, and you can see the dry period coming up here, and then the potential return of some snow for our mountainous areas. Looking at 6 to 10 day precipitation probability outlook, so we're just now starting to include some of that storm, some of those storms here in the Climate Prediction Center's outlook here as well, and then 8 to 14 day, much the Pacific Northwest above average. And check it out, we have had some improvement there. We went from extreme down to severe drought across a lot of the northern Cascades here in the foothills of Skagit, Whatcom, and Snohomish County as well. So we are improving here. Hopefully this dry period doesn't hang on too long and we get these storms back in here so we can continue to improve our drought conditions here across the area. This is the experimental product here for risk of heavy precipitation here as we go on in through early December. You can kind of see starting to highlight anywhere from Northern California up through the Pacific Northwest. Risk of high winds, you can see we are included in this as well. And so they're kind of catching on to those windstorms showing up in the ensemble members also. And risk of heavy snow does exist there for some of the Cascades and on through some of the Rocky Mountains and Bitterroots out there for Idaho as we go on through the early portion of December. So looks like some fun weather possibly coming up here. We just have to kind of bide our time and enjoy what's coming because we're going to have some nice sunny days here as well. So might as well enjoy it while it lasts, right? And you can see today is not going to be an exception. You can get out there and take some pictures, enjoy that weather. Hopefully you have the day off and you get an extended weekend with the Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving Day weekend also, or your Thanksgiving Day yesterday, except for the Seahawks game out there. It was a pretty fun day for me anyway. But yeah, I might get out there and take some pictures, fly the drone around, get some nice scenery out there as well. But anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow and I'll talk to you guys then.